Welcome back to the Rich Eisen Show. Always appreciate when he stops by, certainly when college football is as lit as it currently is, and also bleeding into what might be going on in coach searching in the National Football League. Bruce Feldman of Fox Sports and The Athletic, and also yesterday part of the Big Ten Network's crew at the Rose Bowl. Good to see you, sir.
Good to see you. Happy New Year.
All right. Happy New Year to you, too. So let's start with your tweet. I'm hearing that the Browns have strong interest in former Ohio State head coach Urban Meyer, per sources. I give you the floor.
Yes. From multiple people have told me this. The question is going to be, how interested is Urban Meyer? I mean, remember, this is a guy who grew up in Ohio, really had a admiration for Paul Brown. I think there's some element there that would say, okay, nobody else has been able to fix this. I've won everywhere I've been. Mm-hmm. I'm a Hall of Fame caliber coach. The other challenges, though, and I think there's what's out there, his health issue is real. For people who thought, oh, that's something that's real, and the stress you have from being a TV guy as opposed to stress you have of being...
It's not even close. It's not even close. And certainly, again, Urban's used to having 5 at every position, not just 5 draft choices for 5 spots per year potentially, or 7, if you don't trade any of them away. Or the fact is that, the Browns just had 6 wins, and that was sorely disappointing. He's used to having 6 wins before... October sometimes. I'm exaggerating. So how interested do you think he is?
I think he will listen. The things here is, and I would think this could relate to the Dallas Cowboys potentially as well. You both have situations where you have quarterbacks that I think he's very familiar with. In the case of Dak Prescott, obviously his protege, Dan Mullen, found him, developed him, everything. In the case of Baker Mayfield, remember, a couple of years ago, Baker Mayfield planted the flag in the middle of the stadium. Mm-hmm. The challenge is, I think, again, I don't think for him to go back into college football was one thing. For him to go back into NFL, something he hasn't done before, really, and it's not like he's worked in the league. I mean, we're talking about Matt Rule probably the last time I was here. Matt Rule at least has been, was with the Giants for a season. I don't know. I mean, everything I've always kind of felt from working at Fox this year, especially with being on some calls with Urban, is he genuinely has a passion for what he is doing right now. Mm-hmm. And he's really committed to that. I don't think that's fake. I think it's real. But by the same token, there's certain elements of the competition and certain elements of those things you can't replicate.
Hey, look, I've seen Bruce Feldman here on the Rich Eisen Show. I've been around Mariucci for, now 15 years pretty much. And anytime I was with him on a Thursday night football field, at a game, and he loves what he's doing right now, and his passion is committed as anybody. But when the ball snapped, his hands are on his knees. He's bent over, and he is talking to refs. He's talking to coaches. I saw the end of the Fiesta Bowl. They cut to a shot of Urban, and he looked just like Mariucci does during games.
You know what?
You're a coach. You're always
to that degree. I was at the SEC title game a few weeks ago. Lee Corso, who is 86, 80-something.
Does he do the same thing?
He's there, hands on knees, you can see the energy in him in that. And he's been far removed from being a coach for 20-plus years. Urban Meyer, by the way, is probably as competitive a guy as college football has seen.
Sure.
So maybe take it to the nth degree. But again, I think the health issues are real. And I think... I think there's probably sometimes, and it's not like I've had this conversation with him, so I don't want to portray that I have, but I think from talking to people who have been close to him, I think there's a lot of times where Urban may feel this way about something, and then the next day may feel, rethink it and reevaluate it. So, I do think he will listen. But again, the Browns have all sorts of things going on.
Well, to the point where Bruce Feldman here on the Rich Eisen Show, Matt Rule said, "I'm not interested. Go talk to other people. I'm going to talk to other people, not you." And that was, I think that report came out the morning that John Dorsey went and had the meeting with the Haslams, during which smoke came out and everybody's saying, well, this could be it for Dorsey too. And it was, and I have no idea what in the world is happening there. But Rule knew enough, or was skeptical about enough, for him to say, I might leave Baylor, but not for you.
Yeah.
And so why would Urban not have an issue with the
I'm
same
not sure
thing.
he wouldn't have an issue with that. I don't want to say, to speak on Matt Rule, speaking to somebody close to him, and I'd reported this, I guess, a couple of days ago now. His buyout's sizable. It's not off the charts, but it is a big buyout. Everything I've been told is he and his family really like it there, the situation they have. Mm-hmm. He's making now in his new deal top 10 money in college football. What I was told by somebody close to him is it has to be almost a perfect situation for him to leave what he has. And I think he will be very, very careful about to get into a situation where he's not fully comfortable and confident in the leadership around him.
Well, what about the Meyer Tisch ownership? They're not going anywhere. Obviously, Dave Gettleman might need to look at listings if things don't work out the next year or two, but he is staying for the moment. Daniel Jones, quarterback that is there. How do you think? And Rule was from that organization. He's from that area. Mm-hmm. If the New York Football Giants come knocking on the door of anybody that I know from that area, they're going to think of themselves as a young kid saying, "How do I turn something like this down?" What do you think of that?
I think that's going to be very attractive, and I think it probably would be hard to say no. I honestly think there's a lot of positives to the Panthers' leadership situation that I think could be intriguing to him also. But you know what? Again, I think he's dealing from a position of strength because he knows. I think there's a lot of people who looked at it and go, you can't win a national title at Baylor. And on the surface right now, it doesn't look like you can. But Matt Rule has done stuff already that nobody thought they'd be playing for a Big 12 title the way they did this year. I mean, as far as, first of all, I was kind of shocked he took that job. He could have been the Oregon head coach. They ended up hiring Willie Taggart, and he ended up instead wanting to take the Baylor job. He took it. He's pretty much everything right for them. And I think he's built something. He's evaluated really well. So I don't think it's going to be, people are like, well, he's interviewed before with the NFL, the last 2 years, in fact. I don't think it's a slam dunk he bolts. But I think he looks at these are really good situations. These are things I have to look at. And whereas the Browns, I think it's probably something he was like, you know what, that's not lining up the way I need it to.
Bruce Feldman here on the Rich Eisen Show, and finishing up with the NFL coaching search carousel and how it might connect to college football. As of our conversation, you and I sitting here, Jerry Jones and Jason Garrett apparently having a third meeting together since the end of the season. And in the NFL, just like many sports, what fills a vacuum, certainly when something defies explanation, is rumor, innuendo, or even conspiracy. So I have no idea why this is taking so long of what appears to be so inevitable. Is there any way, shape, or form, because there's no rush right now with Dallas, that Lincoln Riley's sitting out there and they know that he isn't going anywhere to somebody else in Oklahoma, and that this 2 plus that 2 equals 4? Is there any way that's possible, Bruce?
It's possible. I'd be a little surprised if Lincoln Riley took an NFL job at this point. Just from talking to people really close to him recently, I would be surprised. I wouldn't be shocked, but I would be surprised at this point. I think people looked at the way the Peach Bowl came out the other day. Yep. LSU beat them worse than nobody. The worst loss Lincoln Riley had in his 3 years at Oklahoma going into that game was only by 11 points. Mm-hmm. They got blown off the field the other day. They have got to recruit better, especially on defense. I think they made some progress in terms of the big picture. And obviously, to me, the difference from going Baker and Kyler than to Jalen Hurts, who's a different kind of quarterback, and they lost a bunch of offensive linemen around. I think they had a really good year considering. They got a little better on defense. They have to get way better on defense.
But what if the Dallas Cowboys knock? I mean, that's the Dallas Cowboys, right? I mean, even Urban would be answering that telephone call. So
I think if you're Lincoln Riley and you look at this and you say, okay, I work for the best AD in college sports in Joe Castiglione. I have developed my staff where I'm very comfortable with the direction it's going in. I've come, made the playoffs. I've come close the year they almost beat Georgia, and that was with Baker out here at the Rose Bowl.
Right.
I think he knows that he can win a national title at Oklahoma. And I don't think he was going to walk away from that at this point, because I think he knows I'm young enough. The NFL is always going to be there. And again, Jimmy Johnson won a national title before he left Miami to go to the Cowboys. And obviously the timing has to be right, and that was a unique situation. I don't know. I don't think Lincoln leaves on this. That's just my hunch. That's not something that he's told me, but I just don't think he would.
Fox college football analyst, The Athletic's Bruce Feldman here on the Rich Eisen Show. What's at the top of your notebook? What am I not asking you that maybe has come to the fore over the last couple of weeks to you?
We've talked about, we both live in Los Angeles, obviously. Yeah. We've talked a lot about USC and Clay Helton. I think there's a lot of people who are very incredulous that Clay Helton still is the head coach.
Well, certainly after what Iowa did to the Trojans.
Absolutely.
As well.
Iowa, credit to Kirk Ferentz' team, but they whipped that team bad. In Southern California, obviously, no less, at the Holiday Bowl. I don't think people realize, and this is from some of my reporting, the economics of what it would take to make a coaching change there. I think we talked about this the last time I was here, that the money buyout-wise with the staff and Clay Helton would be bigger than it's been reported. The money for the change would actually, we're talking about, could be $50 million to make not just a buyout, not just change the staff,
right?
Because the staff also had multiple year deals. There were some things that Lynn Swann had done that probably not a lot of other ADs wouldn't have gotten attached to the way they did.
What do you mean?
Well, just multi-year deals for assistants, not just for Clay. We're talking about fully guaranteed deals. Those things are significant. And again, it comes back to a little bit of who you're going to get afterwards. I don't know if there was any, I don't think there was any slam dunk. This guy's going to come in here. We make this coaching change. We eat a lot of money that we'd have to eat to make this coaching change. Again, to bring in a new staff and everything that would take, we're talking about $45-50 million.
Well, what about making it Jimmy Iovine Field at Masterpiece Stadium?
Yeah, then who are they going to hire? Then who's the coach that those guys would want to put in there?
At Steven Spielberg locker room, or USC's got people, right?
Yeah, but they also then you have to make a smart decision going forward, especially with a school that, by the way, has all sorts of PR issues and all sorts of scandal problems that they're digging out of. So they're trying to make, and I do think the new president, Carol Folt, I think there is substance there. I don't think that's lip service. I do think she cares about a moral component to this. That and look, in Clay Helton's credit, he is a very upstanding guy in terms of the representative of that. If you're going to try to talk about morals and ethics, and then you blow him out of there and then hire somebody who has a lot of baggage, then you look like the biggest hypocrite there is.
Before I let you go, I will use my real estate with Bruce Feldman for this. The state troopers that bring the coaches out to midfield for interviews and or handshakes, what gives with that?
What gives,
Bruce? It just seems to me that there's more and more.
I did not know where you're going with this question. The only thing I would say is, those state troopers, by the way, if they're
who pays for them? Do we know? Is this Nick Saban's personal state troopers that go with him wherever he goes for Alabama, and this police officer that's with Jim Harbaugh right there? I think
some of those guys are with them all the time. Okay. Obviously, state trooper Alabama is different than probably in the Outback Bowl. There's Florida, probably State Patrol who's also on the sideline. But there will be a guy. There was a policeman that was Miami's guy for a long time, Ed Hudak. He was a former backup offensive lineman. I think he has 3 or 4 national title rings. Bobby Bowden's guy has national title rings. I'm sure.
Look at Kirby Smart. He had a wishbone. He had a wishbone behind him.
Yeah,
Holly Rowe. The good thing she got in there.
Yeah. Oh, Holly would just elbow her way past those people. no matter what kind of hardware they're packing, Holly will find a way. But a lot of them, I don't know about in this case with Georgia there, but I spent the last couple of weeks around LSU. Mm-hmm. Now I know one of the law enforcement guys who's around there. He's, they're part of the program.
Coach O brings him on over. He'll be the national championship.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, coaches aren't going to switch anything like that.
No, in fact, at one point, I remember seeing this particular policeman. It's like they're part of the deal, because I think there has to be a comfort level. I think also you got to remember there are 150 people who are now with these programs, and I think if there's somebody who is in security, I think they need to know, okay, this guy's, I haven't seen him before. What's he doing around here?
Of course.
What's this person doing around here? So I think there's a little bit of that too.
All right. Couple quick hitters for you before I let you completely go here. Tua on Monday says what?
I think Tua's, I'm guessing right now because I'm surprised it's dragged out. Anytime I think it's a player with an injury, especially one, and I know, his insurance situation with that, I think Tua is going to still come out. Because look, if he doesn't come out now, Trevor Lawrence is coming out next year. Yeah. Justin Fields is coming out next year too. I'm not saying Tua's scared of those guys, but Trevor Lawrence is looks like first pick of the draft guy, and Justin Fields is pretty talented too.
We heard Trevor Lawrence was reporting that he's got a $5 million insurance policy if he can't make it to the NFL healthy. Is that the same thing for Tua? Do you hear the same
I would think it would be more than that. So there's obviously a couple of different categories. There's the loss of value, and then there's I would not at all be surprised if Trevor Lawrence has a bigger policy, ends up with a bigger policy than that.
And then last one, big surprise. Is there any surprise? Coaching surprises? What do you think? What do you think would be the most likely surprise in college football?
The most likely surprise, it wasn't that big of a surprise, would be Matt Rule leaving. I just think that on the surface, that feels like there are real options. He's obviously investigated before. I think he'll make a very sound decision. The wild card one is the one we talked about at the beginning, which is Urban Meyer. I mean, my hunch is he won't take anything this year, and he will stay in TV. But I don't think anybody knows exactly what Urban's going to do, because I just think, we saw this when he was at Florida. We've seen it at times where, he can be all over the place with some of these thoughts, because I think there's just a lot to it, and it's not simple with him because of the health issues, because of a lot of factors with him.
Would you be surprised if my guy goes?
Mariucci?
No,
I would be surprised.
No, Harbaugh. I should say that just directly. I guess I should walk through the front door.
If he went to go be the Giants head coach?
Something like that. I mean, the number of times I hear this stuff all the time. But
I feel like I've told you this.
No. He lives next door to his parents. His parents get to hang with their grandchildren.
Never mind that.
He says hello to them through the window.
He is the ultimate competitor.
Right.
And that helmet right now has got a lot of, it's got a lot of other people's paint on it. How does he leave Michigan with job undone? How? I don't know.
And
that's waving a white flag, I think. That's not in line with anything I've ever heard about Jim Harbaugh.
I agree with you. But money's talks, and who knows?
He's got, again, it's easy for me to say this because it's not my money. He's got plenty of money.
Like I said.
He has generational wealth. He does not need to go chase some other job or anything like that. It's like, the question is, do I really think I can get this done?
I think he can. Obviously he can. Just take a look at LSU. I am going to.
The LSU head coach, to his credit, has made a lot of changes that most other head coaches aren't willing to come to terms with. He makes those changes, and I think he sometimes knows to have the discipline to go against some of his own instincts initially. That might be because he's smarter than that.
Well, the reason why I bring up LSU is because they are, or were secondary to Alabama in their conference. They were some organization that was still always looking for an above average, exceptional quarterback. And look what's happened in the last few months, just months. I've never seen somebody go from what Burrow was last year to currently right now.
Yeah, which is probably one of the greatest college quarterbacks in this season that anybody's ever seen.
Correct. So if it can happen in LSU, it can happen at Michigan.
There was 5 factors that happened to what's going on at LSU. I think one was this was the evolution of the head coach and how he runs the program. 2, he made a very, very savvy hire when nobody else knew who Joe Brady was to help spark the offense. 3, I think he needed the infrastructure around Joe Brady with Steve Ensminger, the offense coordinator, how he can manage it, and also the support people who were there. And then he needed Joe Burrow to be, this guy who is incredibly smart, very athletic, and accurate. You have those 3 things where it's like having one of the guys on their staff it told me he reminds him of Peyton Manning. This is a guy who worked with Peyton Manning at Tennessee, Tommy Moffitt, the strength coach. Another guy on their staff is John Robinson, the legendary coach. John Robinson, I'm seeing him practice. He was like, he reminds me of Joe Montana. those are heavy names. So I think, Shea Patterson was a good college quarterback. He didn't turn out to be the 5-star guy.
So was Joe Burrow. I'm
Joe
serious.
Burrow turned out to be something, and I guess this is where maybe I'm not saying it clear enough. I think there are some things where, whether it's diamond in the rough or whatnot, but Joe Burrow's intangibles, it seems like, were off the charts.
That's all I heard about Shea Patterson when he was coming off the campus at Ole Miss.
I don't know if you'd hear, you heard he had a quick release. I don't know if you heard the intangible stuff.
Well, I was talking to the wrong people then, I guess.
I don't know. But if you have a special quarterback, then it can, especially if he's in the right structure and everything else. Right. And look, maybe McCaffrey will be that guy for Michigan. I don't know.
Bruce, thanks for the time. Happy New Year to you. Thanks for coming in here. I'd love to have you back on or in, however you wish, before the national championship game and afterwards as well.
All right.
Bruce Feldman, at Bruce Feldman CFB on Twitter, at Bruce Feldman Fox on Instagram.
For more of The Rich Eisen Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV for free on BR Live or download the Rich Eisen Show app.